There's something about the way you make me feel inside. I'm counting down the days till we fly away, heading to the sun, only you and me. Don't wanna waste another day being stuck here in this place. No, wanna hold your hand in mine, watch the sunset in your eyes. Baby, I want us to act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. This could be magical. To escape, and here we are, driving narrow streets in a rusty car, leading to the sea. Think we're getting close. We should take a pic, baby, strike a pose. I remember every day that I spent right here with you. Yeah, you are the one who makes me feel as good as I do. Baby, I wanna still act like we are 22 right now. Just let go, lose control, play songs on the radio too loud. This could be magical. Whoa, whoa. This could be magical.
guys, good morning. I'm Jennifer, I'm a dog trainer, and today we're going to talk about 5 of the most common mistakes made when trying to use food to train dogs. These tips, changing these things, are going to help you make a lot more progress, get your dog listening a lot better to you. And they happen all the time. They're easy mistakes to make, and they're subtle little changes that shifting the way that we work with our dogs can really, really improve our game. So, does anybody have any guesses about what those might be? There are more than this. I just figured we'd start with a few of the most common. And I'll tell you, the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because I keep seeing posts online, trainers encouraging people not to use food, and it just blows my mind. It's like, why would you throw away the most powerful training tool that you have? You know, it's like they would just want to look at it as if it's cheating. But if I wanted to, I don't know, if I had to clean the bathroom, I wouldn't go in there and be like, no, I'm not going to use brushes and sponges. Like, no, that would be cheating. I'm going to use my hands because I'm a real man. No, I mean, I don't know what. It just doesn't make any sense. And you can do really amazing things with food. If you have seen any of my other videos with my dog Dizzy, you'll see. I mean, we do awesome things. He does some crazy cool tricks, and the super cool thing about it is, oh my gosh, I gotta put something together because I was just playing around and took a little video of us training yesterday, and the way that he moves through space, the way, like the joy, it just comes out in the way that he moves his body when we're training. It's just like he loves this stuff. He's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. What do you want me to do? Let's learn. Let's do it. And you just don't see that when you train without using food or toys, play, stuff the dogs love. So it's so cool to see, and I want you to have that with your dog, because honestly, my favorite part about this job is getting to see people just absolutely fall in love with their dogs again. When they see how smart when you see how smart your dog is, and how much that they can do, and that you've been able to produce, like, oh, it's so heartwarming. It's so, like, I want that for you. And this is my favorite part about my job, is getting to see you build that with your dog. So cool. Yes, Sandy, people want robots. I think people want robots until they realize that you can have, like, there's a third option. It's not like unruly dog behavior or a dog who only does exactly what you want all of the time. Like, those aren't the only two options. That is a false dichotomy. There's a third option where you can have a dog who behaves well most of the time, right? They are still living things. None of us behave well all of the time. Yes, I'm looking at you. All of us, right? We all don't do what we're supposed to at times. That's to be expected. That's fine. But in this third option, like, you can have a dog who behaves really, really well most of the time, and they do way cool stuff. You're going to be so impressed by your dog. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, my dog's amazing. I mean, I know you already think your dog is amazing, but, like, your dog is more amazing than you think, and you can draw this out of them. It's so that's why we use food. But sometimes people think that food doesn't work, or it's not the way to go, and I think that that's because we're not using it in the right way. We're almost there, but there's just a couple of things we need to change so that it's really effective in training dogs. And yeah, I was thinking about this analogy yesterday. I'm like, food is a tool. Food is a tool that we use in training, right? And we wouldn't, you wouldn't, like, if you were, let's say, building a deck, building a house, building something, right, with a hammer and nails. If you swung the hammer at the nail and you missed, and the nail's still right there, right? Like, you wouldn't be like, oh, well, hammers don't work. let's pull out a screwdriver. Let's, you wouldn't throw the tool out because it didn't do what you wanted, right? You'd learn how to use it. And the same is true with using food for training. We use it as a tool, and you can use it wrong or just ineffectively. And you can use it very effectively, right? And it's not the dog's fault, and it's not the food's fault. It's just skills that we have to learn, right? So that is where we're at today. So, and Sandy, if you're still watching, do you do you want to throw out any of common mistakes? I'm just like, my audience so far is very, very smart people. And so you guys are already, I know you're already doing a great job with your dogs, all of you. So maybe you already know, maybe you can share, maybe there's more than the 5 I was going to talk about today, right? So if you want to throw those in the comments, go for it. It'll be a good time. And so, but I'll go ahead and get started with the ones that I have on my mind today. So number 1 is showing the dog food before you begin, before you ask them the thing you're going to ask them. Holding the food in view, if you will. And so the reason this is a mistake, right, is because when we're teaching a dog a new behavior, we want the cue, which is the thing that we want the dog to respond to ultimately, right? So a cue might be the word that we say, when we tell a dog to sit or what have you. It might be a hand signal or something else. It could be. But whatever we want the dog to respond to, ultimately, we want that to be the very first thing that the dog notices in training, right? From day 1. If they notice the food first, because you're holding it, waving it in their face perhaps, then the food itself is going to become the cue. Right? And that's when you get people starting to say that, oh, yeah, he knows it, but he won't do it unless I'm showing him food, right? It's because the food itself has become your cue. Now, we do use food up front a lot of times when we're teaching a brand new behavior. We will use food. We'll use it as a lure. I've got food here. Let me see. We've got a treat. We will use food as a lure, putting it on the dog's nose and getting the dog to follow it, or moving their body into position. But the difference is, right, and I said these might be subtle differences. The difference is I'm going to use that lure, that treat up front before I've asked them to do anything, only a few times, right? My goal is when I'm teaching a new behavior to a dog for the first time, my goal is I only want to use this lure 5 times or less. Sometimes it does happen to be more. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2 times, right? But that small of numbers is what I'm talking about. I might use the lure that many times. After that, I do not show any food up front. And that's really, really important because your cue your cue is it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is actually the treat that comes after the behavior. I got to be careful how I say that there. But your cue is so important. It can be so powerful if you treat it with care. And part of treating it with care is making sure that it comes first in your sequence always. After the first 1 to 5 times-ish. So, yeah, we want you to avoid the trap of creating a dog who is dependent on seeing the food first, right? And so we get rid of the lures as soon as possible. They can be, I'm not bashing lures at all. Lures are really, really handy. To me, I think they're kind of like shortcuts in teaching behavior. And again, why would you throw away a good tool? But it's good in a specific context, right? So we want to get rid of those lures as soon as possible. Use them, but get rid of them fast. So what do you do after that, right? If maybe I can recruit Dizzy to play with me here to show you guys what I mean. Hey, Diz, you want to wake up? He's sleepy. He had 4-day weekend at the sitter on a farm. He got so much attention, and he's been exhausted ever since. I'm gonna grab his chair here so he can join the party. All right, Des, you wanna? Oh, hello. So say, let me get a treat here. So say I wanted Dizzy to, I don't know, look at the camera. To use a lure, the first couple of times, right? It might look like this, right? Treat right on his nose, but I'm not giving it to him just yet. This is going on way too long, so I might like make him look this way. Yes, and then he gets the treat. And I might do that, yes, a few times, up to 5 if it's working. But then after that, I might switch to using just a hand signal, right? Can we? Yes. He can follow my hand without food in it, and he still does the behavior I've asked, and he still gets the treat after, right? I'm afraid, that sometimes when we talk about this, we're like, yeah, use food up front, but we want to get rid of food entirely very quickly. No. You want to get rid of the lure very quickly. But the food stays. The food is the dog's reward for doing what you've asked. And that is, like I said earlier, that's the most important piece of training with positive reinforcement is the rewards have to continue to come. Now, before anybody asks, yeah, in some cases you are going to fade the food out quite a bit later, but not quickly. And I would continue to use it at least some of the time forever, for the dog's life, because why not? You're going to feed them anyway. They might as well earn it for doing cool stuff. So yeah. Where might we keep the food? If we're not holding it, if we're not showing the dog up front after those first few steps, where are you keeping your food? If it's in your hands, you might keep it behind your back, or keep it perhaps on a shelf, on a table, something, but just not on your person, or not in your hands, rather. It can be on your person. We're gonna get to that in a second. Yeah, you just don't want to be waving food around. We don't want this to be the most obvious. Like if I'm holding food, like Dizzy, I mean, like that's all he's paying attention to. He's not going to see that I'm asking him to, I don't know, Dizzy. Well, if I say something, he will probably listen. But that's because we do this a lot. We practice a ton. But you see what I mean? Like when there's food very obviously around, like that's all he's looking at. And I want him to notice, he has to notice that my hands or my body or something is cueing him to do something. And if he is not noticing it, he's not going to learn it. And my training is going to go very slowly. That's not what we want. So yeah. Use your food as a lure the first couple of times, but if it's working and your dog will continue to do it for just a hand signal with no food up front, that's what we're aiming for. Now, yeah. The dogs, they can still smell it sometimes. If the food's out, even if it's behind our back, even if it's on the table or something, they can still smell it. We're not being oblivious to the fact that our dogs' noses are amazing and that they know food's around. But if we're over here doing something else, and the dog is watching and listening, then they have the opportunity to notice the cue that we really do want them to learn. Hey, Paul. Welcome. I'm doing great. How are you? Yeah. So don't show the dog the food up front. That's get rid of that ASAP. That was tip number 1. Tip number 2 also has to do with where we're keeping our food. Tip number 2 is keeping food, or mistake number 2, I should say, is keeping food in a baggie. Let's just, this is bad. This also has to do with projecting to the dog that like, hey, there's food out here, right? So if you are going, getting ready to train your dog, whether you're at home, whether you're taking them to class, don't show up ready to train when your treats are still in the bag that they came in. We don't want that. I'm sorry, Diz, you can't have these because they're chicken. I'm being a bit of a tease these days. But we're given some treats that Diz is allergic to, so he can't have them. But other dogs will love them. Paul, a lot. Have you tried to train your cats? Because I follow a couple cat trainers on Instagram and stuff, and it's exactly the same. Well, almost exactly the same. I mean, the principles are all the same. So yeah, if you want to teach your cat some cool tricks, absolutely still applies. The cats move differently. They're a little bit slower. I actually had an opportunity to work with a friend's cat recently, and it was super, super fun. But wow, I'm like, this is so different. Dogs are like all over the place, and they're fast, and they want the food, and it's like, yeah, cats want food too, and they will work for it, but they have a more they're more thoughtful in their movements, more conservative in their movements, and they move a little bit slower. So it's a good way to work on your patience. Or for me, I'm used to like, okay, I gotta move, and I really had to like, take a breath, slow down. But yeah, it definitely applies to cats too. Sandy said, I hate those baggies. So mistake number 2, don't carry around the baggie. And the reason is, just like when we're holding food, where the dog can see it, so it becomes a visual cue. When you are using a baggie, when you're keeping your treats in the baggie and you're training, oftentimes, and it happens to the best of us, right? We get a little bit ahead of ourselves, and we start preparing, because we know that with the treats, the rewards have to come quickly in order for the dog to connect. That treat was for that behavior. They have to occur very quickly in time, and so we kind of get ahead of ourselves, and we're like reaching our hands in the bag, and we're getting ready. But guess what? When you reach your hand in a bag like this, that crinkle sound is like, hey dog, treats are coming. And again, they're paying way more attention to the sound than to what you're actually cueing them to do. So again, you're overriding what you want them to notice, which again is usually either your words or your hand signals. And so that sound is way too obvious to dogs. It's why a lot of times people who might say that their dog doesn't have a very good recall trained, meaning they don't come when called. A lot of those same people have trained their dogs a beautiful, perfect recall. It's just that the recall cue, instead of being like, Fido, come, it's that's just become the cue, right? They've trained it beautifully. And it's because this bag crinkle, its predictive value for the dog is near 100%, right? If they hear bag crinkle, they know that, gosh, there's a very, very good chance that they're getting treats. And that's why it works. But if we don't want to have a bag, if we don't want that to be the cue, if you don't want to be the person, I don't know, out at the park who's like, puppy treats, then all you do is move the treats out of the bag, move it into something that's quieter. Oftentimes I will see they've taken the treats out of the bag that the treats came in, but they've moved it into another Ziploc bags. And guess what? Still got that crinkle. So the crinkle sound we do not want. It gets in the way of what we want the dog to actually learn. And so what I recommend instead is, this is, okay, so I have a bunch of examples of alternatives to these things that are much quieter and very handy. And so I'm going to show you all of them because the style, it's up to you, your preference, right? And they're all different. So I'll start with, let's see, I'll show you the one that I've been using most recently. because it works for me and Dizzy. And I have to apologize in advance. All of these are like very dirty because they get a lot of use. And I need to clean them more often. But anyway, so treat pouch, bait bag. I've heard some brilliant mind called it a snack satchel at one point. Whatever you want to call it. It is a little bag intended for you to put your dog treats in. You guys know I talk a lot about Kongs and how much I love them and how much everybody should have like a lot of Kongs for their dog. Every dog owner should have at least one treat bag as well. But let's talk about what makes a better or worse treat bag, right? The reason I like this one is because it's small. I'm a small person, and so if I get the bigger ones, they can be kind of bulky, and I like one that's pretty small. It's got a little clip on the back, so what I do is I will wear it on a belt around my waist so that my hands can be free. And then this one it stays open while I'm using it, but if I want to close it up so that the treats don't fall out if I'm moving around, it's got a little drawstring so that I can close the treats up. Don't want to leave anything perishable in here because treats get moldy. This is the case for all the bags, which is I think why people defer to the plastic Ziploc bag type bags, is because they can preserve the treats. So what you do is just take out as many as you think you'll use, put it in the bag, do your training or throughout the day, however you're treating your dog, and then when you're done, put the leftovers either in the dog bowl or back in a container. But for working directly with your dog, the treat bag is amazing. So I like this one. It also, most treat bags will have nice little pockets so that you can put like bags. This one's pretty simple, but it's the one I have liked using a lot lately. Another one of my favorites looks like so. This is the Pet Safe treat pouch. It's got 2 pockets, actually, which I guess you could put another type of treat or just your poop bags or something else in the front pocket. It's got this little thing, which is nice if you carry around like a Chuck-It. Something else that can hang on there. But this one, the reason I like it a lot is because it has these mechanical little hinges so that you can, when you are wearing it on your belt, it can remain open like this, but it's super easy to just close. And then if you've got treat divers, dogs who will just like jump and put their whole face in there, it's easy enough to like prevent them from doing that. So it's the hinges, that little mechanism is really nice. So this is probably my number 2 favorite that I've used a lot. And again, super dirty because it gets a lot of use. Another favorite is this one. And this is from Doggone Good. And the cool thing about this is that it comes in all sorts of different colors and patterns, and so you can get one that you like the look of. It's for aesthetic reasons, right? It's a fashion accessory, your dog pouch. But yeah, again, you've got the pocket in the back for poop bags. You've got the clip to hang it on your belt. It also comes with a strap that you could wear it over your shoulder if you'd rather not. The extra front pocket. And the closing mechanism on this one, instead of being like a mechanical hinge, it's a magnetic one that you can use to close it quickly. So super handy. And again, this one and the Pet Safe both have like 2 internal pockets too, so that you can carry multiple types of treats, which is a good idea, but we won't talk about that today. But it's a good idea. So those are really nice ones. There are so many other types of treat bags, and I've got one more to show you here today. This one is entirely made of silicone. It does have a little belt clip, and you actually can just stick your hand in there. It stays closed like that much most of the time, and you can just like squeeze to pop it open, but its natural position is closed. The nice thing about this one is that it's easier to clean because of the material, and but I don't use it that much because it's so like squishable and malleable. And I don't know, I guess the way I move, like I'm when I'm working with dogs, I'm like very active. I'm like moving and jumping and stuff, and like somehow treats always end up coming out of it, which is not good for your training. So I don't end up using this one as much for that reason. But that's just to give you a few examples of the different features and what I'm looking for in a treat bag. Choose whichever one you like the best. It doesn't. I mean, it's entirely up to it's your preference, but I recommend that you get one at least. They're drastically going to improve your training, and they're so handy, right? But the best thing about it is that it gives you a place to put your treats that's not in your hands. You can put it out of sight. In fact, let me show you how I get geared up to start working with a dog. Let's see, Sandy says, I had to change to the dreaded fanny pack because Turtle and Sam need different treats. So you've got 2 zipped pockets. Yeah, fanny packs work great too, guys. You don't have to go out and buy something that's like made for dogs. In fact, I've got a fanny pack too that I've used. Same thing. About the same level of stylishness, but you can get, I mean, you can get really cute ones. They actually make really, really cute fanny packs these days. Yes?
Hi.
Can you? Yeah, so what I do is most of them come with a little belt that you wear around your waist. They're adjustable, so that's handy. And then you just, where's the clip? You can just clip it. It's super, like really, really simple. And what you would do is take your big bag, take your little thing, and you just slide it on there, easy peasy. All of a sudden, your hands are free, and you can slide it around. So again, it's out of the dog's view so that you can give your hand signals, whatever you need to tell them, so that that's the most salient visual cue. It's obvious for them, and then when you're ready, you just reach your hand back there, grab your treat, and hand it to your dog. Extra little tip for you guys, I really like this belt that has the attached D-ring, because what I do to keep my hands even more free is my leash for my dog. I put a little carabiner on the end, snap it to the D-ring, and then attach the other end to my dog, and voila, again, my hands are even more free. So I can move them, I can give them cues, I can, whatever you gotta do. But yeah, so the being hands-free for me, it's so much easier. It's like when you're first learning how to train, like when I was first learning how to train, it was a little overwhelming. Like there's so many things that I had to be holding and handling and managing. You've got the leash, you've got the dog, you've got the treats, you've got the clicker, if you're using a clicker. There's all these things, and we only have 2 hands. So the more that I can create a hands-free situation, it gives me a little bit, it's more relaxing for me because I don't have to worry about a couple of things. But yeah, so the treat pouches are fabulous for that. And you're not going to be projecting treat sounds. You still do have to be careful that you're not like putting your hand in that pocket before you've given your cues, but it makes it a lot easier, right? Because you know that they're right there. You can just grab them and hand them, your dog will figure it out. So yeah, that was mistake number 2, is keeping food in a baggie. Switch to a treat pouch. You can, I didn't mention this, but you can use your just pockets, but there's several reasons why I don't like to do that. I still do it sometimes, but I have to be very careful to remember to get if there's any extra food at the end of the day, to get that food out of there, because again, food is perishable, it gets moldy, which means your jacket pockets get moldy, which is gross. So if I can just keep myself from putting food in there in the first place, that's ideal. But the other problem is that if you forget, not only could it go bad, but if you are not really good about putting your jacket up and away and maybe in a closet behind a door, your dogs will find that food later and you will end up with holes in your pockets. And clothes aren't cheap. Jackets are not cheap. And so I don't like to have to keep like replacing things because my dogs have chewed holes in them because I forgot to take the food out. So yeah, pockets are an option. You can do it. Sometimes you can get away with it, but you have to be very good about remembering to get the food out of there. Because even sometimes, like, even if you're like, okay, I got the treats out, but there's still like crumbs, you might have a dog who's still like, that's worth chewing a hole through fabric for. Sure, I'll take some crumbs. So yeah, that actually leads really nicely into mistake number 3, which is in training, giving dog too big of pieces of food as a reward. Dogs, like if you've got a dog who will work, meaning chewing the hole through the fabric for crumbs, then you don't need, oh, I'm wearing it. I'm like, where did my treats go? Then you don't need to give a dog a treat that is this big. Oh, where? Let's see. Can we get it? Come on, camera. Ha! That's very funny. There we go. Yeah. That's a huge piece of food. Oh, hi, Dizzy. That's a huge piece of food as a reward in training. And most commercial dog treats come with pieces that are way too big for training. And like I said, most dogs will work for smaller pieces. So you don't need to give them this big of a treat. But there's also this funny phenomenon that it seems like dogs value quantity over the size of the treats, right? Like, so you could give them the same piece, but break it into 2, and all of a sudden they're like, "Ooh, I get 2 pieces?" It's the same amount of food, but, you know, dog logic, who knows? This is a thing that seems to happen, which is why we are like, use the smallest treats that the dog will work for. Not only because the dog will think that, you know, I don't know, maybe it's, oh, he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing with those pieces? Like, these are kind of hard to break. But yeah, oh, all of a sudden it's 4 pieces instead of 1, instead of 2. And you can keep going, right? Dizzy. You're just sweet, so there you go. So yeah, when we give dogs really big pieces in training, we're minimizing the amount of training that we can do because their stomachs, again, are only so big. And now, maybe with your labs and, you know, certain dogs here and there, they could and would eat, and they would continue to work for food and forever. But not all dogs are like that. I wouldn't even say most dogs are like that. Oh, he's being so sweet. Hi, sugar. So yeah, a lot of times, you know, they will fill up, and if they're full, their motivation to work for that food goes down drastically, and so you'll have to cut your training session short. And so, yeah. And also, not to mention the fact that we don't want our dogs to get overweight, right? Like, we want to use food in training. We want to use a lot of food in training. But just because, you know, just because we're using food doesn't mean that they have to get fat. Because I've got a whole other video on this. Overweight dogs, like, we shorten their lifespan. There's all sorts of negative health effects, just like for us humans. The only difference is we manage everything that goes into their bodies, and so it's our fault. Unless, I mean, barring health conditions, of course, always. But yeah, being overweight for dogs really affects them, and a lot of people they really don't recognize when their dog's starting to get overweight. So if you're not sure, there's lots of graphs. Check them out. Anyway, I'll get off of the weight topic, but because we're using food, we are concerned about that. So weight We don't want the dog to lose the motivation to keep working. And when we're training new behaviors, we have to do a lot of repetition of the same, asking them for the same behavior over and over and rewarding them for it, in order for it to become habit for them, in order for it to become an automatic, like, oh, sit, yes, I know what that means. Let me, right away. So when we use big pieces, we're able to do fewer repetitions, which means the dog is learning it less. And you don't have to use big pieces, so break them small. You can find, there are a couple commercial brands of dog treats. You can use your dog's food. You don't have to like buy a separate category of treats. Like to dogs, food is food is food. And you can buy like small kibble, like that's a great, and also it's relative to your dog's size, right? So like maybe for a giant dog, this would have been an okay piece to give them. But for most, medium, like 40, 50, 60 pound dogs, you can get away with like, you can get away with like teeny, tiny pieces, baby pieces. And they will work for it. And they'll be excited about it, right? So yeah, you can also like, this I guess has more to do with point number 4, which might seem contradictory, but hear me out. Mistake number 4, when training dogs with food, is being too stingy. Yes, doesn't that sound like a direct contradiction to number 3? Like, use smaller pieces. But I'm not saying give them less food on the whole, right? I don't have to ask my dog to sit and give them one tiny piece and we're done. In fact, if I'm building up a duration, like if you've got that dog who they'll sit, but they bounce right back up on their feet and they won't hold it, they won't hold a position, that's a really perfect example of a case where we might want to give a dog more than one treat for that one behavior. Yes, we ask them to sit and then we treat and we treat and we treat and they're still sitting, so we keep treating. Like when we withhold treats and we're like, they're not doing enough. Okay, you did one sit, you get a treat. Like, that's great. But now, okay, the next 4 or 5 sits, like, you're not getting a treat because you should just be doing it, right? When we're being stingy with handing out rewards for the work that they're doing, and training is their work, they're not going to want to play your games anymore. Guys, the food is your dog's paycheck, right? And if they don't feel that what you give is worth the work that they're doing, they're gonna quit the job, same as you would, right? It's tempting to think like, well, I mean, how much work is sitting? Like it's really easy. It's nothing. Like I shouldn't have to give them a reward for doing that sit, especially when they've done it before. It's really tempting to think like it's so easy. So I shouldn't have to pay them, whatever. But consider this. The things that we ask dogs to do often don't make any sense to dogs. And it's not what they would choose to do in that scenario, or it's not what they want to do, which means it's not easy for them. The things that you don't want to do aren't easy, right? Like loading the dishwasher, objectively easy, but like, do you put it off? Do you do it right away all the time? Folding laundry, easy. But how many of us have baskets of clean clothes just sitting there and they never get folded, right? Easy. Just because it's easy doesn't mean that it's not work or it doesn't feel like hard work. Stuff like that we say is expensive behavior, meaning we got to pay up if we want our animals to do it. Hello, Jackie Hoover. So yeah, we don't want to be stingy with paying our dogs, right? The goal, excuse me, sorry, my eye's itchy. The goal in training, like, is not, I mean, a lot of these seem contradictory, don't they? My mistake number 1 was showing the dog food before you begin, and and like making it really obvious that they're getting food. But yeah, when and fading the food out. That's where I was going. I'm like, wow. Is getting rid of the food, getting rid of showing them the food up front, and possibly even fading food out of some training tasks over time. But the goal is not to just not have to give them what they want or not have to reward them for behavior. In fact, even if you choose not to use food later on in your training, you still have to replace the food with another reward. The behavior that your dog is offering, it has to be effective for them. Otherwise, they will stop doing it. And you will be like, we did all the training. Like, why isn't he sitting anymore? Or why won't he stay? That's a hard one. Why won't he come when I call? That's a really hard one, right? Yeah, my point is, it's really tempting for us to think like, this is so easy. I know what I want them to do, and it's not a lot to ask of them. But for the dog, it is, if they would be choosing to do something else, anything else, when you ask them to do something, that means it's hard work, and that means they need a paycheck for it. So don't be stingy with your treats. In fact, I love, I never remember this quote exactly, but Jean Donaldson is brilliant. And she says, the point is something along the lines of, none of us are going to reach the end of our dog's life and are like, whew, really glad we didn't give him a lot of treats, right? Like, most of us, we want to give the dog treats, right? But it's just that I see a lot of people who are like, they just want to give the dog treats anytime, whenever. But then they complain that their dog's behavior is not what they want. And I'm like, if you just gave them the same treats you were going to give them anyway, but just move it into right after they did something that you like, you both win, right? Dog gets the food, you get the behavior, everybody's happy. Yeah, don't be stingy in training. For some reason, we put training in this bubble where it's like my dog is faulty if I have to feed them for doing what I ask. Like, no, that's a normal functioning animal. It's great. Yeah, feel free to be generous with your treats. You can give multiple treats for the same behavior. I do just recommend breaking them into smaller bits so the dog is like, whoa, mind blown, I got 5 treats, and you're like, oh, it really was just one, I just broke it up. But anyway, so that brings us to number 5. Mistake number 5 today that we do when we're using food to train is when we use that food to lure a dog to do something that they're not gonna like, right? This is another example of using food up front and luring them, but it's in an instance where we're getting the dog to do something that we don't know how to get them to do any other way, because we know that the dog's not gonna like it. It's like if your dog is not crate trained and you toss a treat into the crate and the dog chases it in, and then you're like, gotcha, and we lock them in their crate because we got to go to work or what have you. Hey, CK. So when you do that, when you use food in that way to get a dog to do something that they're not going to like, you're breaking their trust. And they will learn that you are a liar very, very quickly. It happens so fast. Your dog is not dumb. Your dog will pick up on this lightning speed, and all of a sudden you'll hear yourself saying man, that used to work, and he just doesn't, he's too savvy now, he's figured it out, now he won't follow the food. Which is a bummer, not only because your dog doesn't trust you anymore, but because now you've lost the ability to use food as a tool in other training, right? If your dog doesn't trust you with food, you can't use food for training. And so if you had big dreams of teaching your dog all these cool tricks and showing off to your friends and stuff, but you broke your dog's trust by using food as a trick, you're not gonna reach those heights that you wanted to get to, because you'll have to spend time earning your dog's trust back. You'll have to spend time teaching them, again, that you are trustworthy with food. We CK, you're hilarious. She says, I realize a lot of this is applicable to keep Paul Burke in line. Yeah, I mean, certainly we don't want to break anybody's trust. Yeah, don't use food to trick your dog. Your dog is too smart for that. It won't work for very long, and you'll ruin your ability to use food as a tool in training later for other stuff also. So that's a big one. And it's so, again, these are like, the reason I'm talking about it today is because these are like little things that it's so easy to just like, well, it's just this once, or it's so easy to like fall into the habit of doing some of these things because it's easier for us. We're looking for convenience, right? I hate to say it, but sometimes dog training isn't the most convenient thing. We try, our trainers try and make it as convenient for you as possible, but some things we just can't get away with, not without degrading the behavior of our dogs or our ability to work with them. And so, yeah, we don't want to make training any harder than it has to be. So that's why these tips. And it's so easy. There will be a moment, I guarantee it, when, I don't know, whether it's this week, a week from now, a month from now, your next dog, who knows, there will be a moment when you're like, I need to get my dog to do something. I need him to jump in the car. I need him to jump in the bathtub. I need him to, I don't know, get on the other side of this fence. I need him to get out of the kitchen. I need to move him. And you're going to want to just like, oh, I'll get him to follow the food. And then he'll be like, oh, what happened? Like, why am I stuck here? Why did I lose something? Why am I getting a bath now? So don't use food as a trick. It's not worth losing your dog's trust. Even if you didn't want to, even if you like have minimal training goals, you're happy if your dog just sits or lies down when you ask and that's all you need. It's not worth breaking your dog's trust. It really, like that, the trust. I mean, and if you watch any more of my videos, this is like the most important thing to me is the trust that my animal has in me, because that is the gate that opens up to everything else, right? You lose trust, you lose access to so many other things. Your bond with that dog is never going to be as close as it could be if you're protecting their trust in you. So even when it's like so convenient, you're just like, I'm in a hurry, I just need him to go. Just throw the treats. Don't do it. Frankly, tell your dog, like, I'm sorry, bud, but I gotta put you in there. Like, tell them what's happening. You can, they may not want to, you still may have to do the thing that they don't want, but it's not worth using food in that way because food's such a powerful tool. And I want you to have that power. So yeah, those are my 5 training mistakes with food for today. As I've been talking, I keep thinking of more, and so we might have to do this again. But those are some really, really common ones that hopefully, knowing now what you know, will help you to make better, faster, more efficient progress with your dog. And they will notice, trust me. So yeah, if you guys have thought of ones also that you are like, hey, we should talk about this next time, throw them in the comments for me, because there are a lot. I know there are a lot, and I'd love to hear what you guys already know. Maybe, hey, if everybody knows it, we don't need to talk about it. Who knows? Thank you, Sandy. Bravo. Sandy's working for Bravo Pup, her amazing dog training company in Berkeley, East Bay. Lovely to have you, as always. All of you. Thank you so much for watching. If you know anybody who could use these tips, feel free to share the video. That really helps. It also helps me if you hit subscribe on the little red button on YouTube, or like or follow my page on Facebook if that's where you're watching from. And again, thank you so much for being here with me. Hopefully I will see you next week, next Thursday at 11. All right, have a great one, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.